Greetings and salutations, everyone, and happy 4th of July. Today I've got a set of encounters to share with you that are just plain terrifying. Before we get into these encounters, though, a couple links I'd like to share. As you know, I rely on my Patreon, my PayPal, and my merch to help this channel to continue to grow and go. Those links are in the description below, as well as my second channel for creepypastas, fanfiction, and scary voice acting. Stories that don't fit on this channel. Now, if that's anything that you're into, follow that link and give those stories a listen. You may just like what you hear. I also started a GoFundMe page a little while back to help raise some money for urbex, cryptid hunting, and ghost hunting videos. If that's anything that you're willing to help with, that link is also in the description below. Now, this goes out to a very special subscriber. Probably one of my youngest subscribers. Let's get on with these encounters. You know who you are. Shall we? Today's first terrifying encounter is a possible Dogman, possible Sasquatch, just terrifying, unidentified cryptid. The following story happened to one of my closest friends. It was told to me the next morning as he sat very upset and scared in his kitchen. This affected me deeply, as this friend is one of the most fearless and capable people I've ever met. Just to show you how calm and unexcitable he is, I'll share one of his incidences that happened in the past. While sleeping in the back of his pickup truck one night in a very remote part of southeast Idaho, he told me that he was startled out of a deep sleep by an uneasy feeling of being watched. Upon opening his eyes, he was surprised to see a gray, hairy man-like face leaning over the side of his pickup bed, watching him sleep. He quickly sat up, startling the creature, which he watched bound away in the moonlight through the sagebrush and lava rock. When he told me this, I asked, "What did you do?" He answered, "I went back to sleep. I was tired." As I said, not very excitable. So when I saw him that morning in his kitchen, scared and shaking, it affected me deeply. This is what happened to him. My friend and I had just moved to Portland, Oregon right after college. One day he asked me if he could borrow my .357 to take on a deer archery hunt he was planning the next weekend. He didn't think he'd need to use it, but was concerned about the bear population where he would be hunting. Of course, I loaned it to him, and he arrived at the hunting site deep in the woods at the end of an old logging road. It was just about twilight. Wanting to start hunting first thing the next morning, he rode his mountain bike in the dark to where he had hung his stand to spread some scent and make sure his shooting lanes were still open. As he was crouched down, dribbling dough in heat urine on a bush, he felt the presence of something behind him. He stood and turned, reaching for the only light he had brought with him, one of those little keyring LED lights that turn on when you squeeze it. He squeezed the light and saw a pretty large set of eyes, about 3 feet off the ground, reflecting back at him. The LED light was too weak to show him anything else except the reflection of those eyes. Thinking it was normal that a bear or a deer would mistake him for an animal. After all, he was crouched down and smelled like deer urine. He stood up straight, clapping his hands and yelling, "Get out of here!" in a firm voice, expecting that the confused animal would bolt away when it realized that he was a human. His actions didn't bring the expected result. Instead of turning and running away, the eyes slowly rose to over 9 feet tall and took a step towards him. He felt an overwhelming sense of dread and quickly pulled the .357, holding the revolver in one hand and squeezing the LED light in the other, and backed away from the eyes. Every step he took backwards, the eyes matched by advancing towards him, but always staying just out of light. In the short time he was backing up, he backed against a tree, which he used to protect his back, while watching the eyes observe him from 10 feet away. The eyes would weave back and forth like a large animal adjusting its weight from side to side. They would rise and lower slightly like something was studying him from different angles. Even though he never saw the animal, he knew its thing was huge. The way it moved, the sound of the leaves and sticks under its feet as it walked, the impressive amounts of air it inhaled and exhaled, and most of all the height of those eyes as they towered over him, all indicated the creature's massive proportions. After an eternity, he lost sight of the eyes, but could hear the animal circling his position. More than an hour had passed since the last noise or sighting of the eyes. My friend, sitting with his back against the tree and a loaded cocked .357 in his hand, decided it was safe enough to leave the area. It was now 1 a.m, and he started walking back to where he left his bike. To his horror, he heard the animal paralleling him in the thick brush. The beast followed him to his bike. Not wanting to lose the sense of hearing, his only warning of the animal's position, he chose to push the bike back to the truck instead of riding it. It took him over 4 hours to push the bike back. When he thought the animal was too close, judging by the sounds it made in the underbrush, he would stop and wait. Every time he stopped, the animal would start circling again. When it sounded like the animal's circle route took it a little further away, my friend would start pushing his bike again, only to repeat the same routine about every 10 minutes or so throughout this torturous night. Finally, after a lifetime, he reached his vehicle, and in an adrenaline and panic-induced sprint, he threw his bike in the back of the truck and started down the mountain road. It took him several miles before the heavy sense of doom started to recede. As the adrenaline wore off, the shakes started. He started shaking so bad that it was all he could do to keep the truck on the road until he pulled up to his house and went into his kitchen. That's where I found him a while later when I went to his house to feed and water his dog. After he told me what had happened to him, I offered to go back with him to retrieve his camping gear and tree stand. He refused the offer and left his possessions to nature rather than return to the area. Even though he hunts and fishes as avidly as ever, he will never go back to that spot and avoids the entire region. Today's second encounter is a Dogman encounter. My husband saw a creature in Orfordville, Wisconsin, back in the late 90s, 98 I think, off of Old Highway 11. He was picking up speed to continue onto the highway and a wolf was on the side of the road, on all fours. And then it got up and walked in front of my husband's car and looked right at him. He said the wolf creature had a huge muzzle and yellow eyes. He said it ran on 2 legs across the road into a cornfield. Needless to say, my husband got the heck out of Dodge. Believe that. My husband and I live in Janesville, Wisconsin, which is an hour just shy of Elkhorn. It had a long snout, very hairy, and was about 6 to 7 feet tall. There are things we can't explain. They do exist. Today's third encounter is a subscriber Dogman encounter. Jeff, this is my encounter, but I need you to understand my background. I grew up in the Scottish Highlands, middle of nowhere on a moor approximately 700 feet above sea level. We were right next to my grandmother, and our house was on an acre-sized plot, which just had the main house and butted against my grandmother's. This was surrounded by an L-shaped park, which led into a very steep bracken-covered hill. Now for the culture. Well, it was a good 50 years behind the rest of the UK. We had no TV, main electricity until '82. So Sunday involved wearing your itchiest best clothes and off to church you'd go, followed by Sunday school. This one day, the whole family got together for a Sunday dinner, which was prepared the night before, as no work on Sabbath. Thus, no playing for children. You could look at Christian literature, but no going outside. So, after Sunday dinner, all the adults fell asleep at the same time. It was about 6. So I snuck out through the garden and over the field and started to climb the bracken-covered hill to my favorite hiding spot where a big pile of bracken had built, maybe placed. I was young now. This was tall, and behind it you were well hidden by a 7-foot wall. Now, as I approached it, I looked up, and a black-haired covered chest, neck, and head of a large dog that looked down at me and snarled. I screamed and ran back, waking the adults with my tail, which I was firmly told that was God punishing me for sneaking out, and lots of unspoken eye contact between the adults, which I was too young to understand. Today's fourth encounter is a subscriber encounter. This one is a little freaky, guys. I'm going to need your help on this one. Okay, Jeff, this is part of my story, what's been happening to me lately. It all started on Christmas Eve. I was driving back from Little Washington, Pennsylvania in Washington County, going down Route 844. I figured I'd take a side road and cut over the hill to Route 50 and go home. Well, on my way home on the back road, something jumped in front of me. It was huge and had red eyes. It moved like the wind. It jumped in front of my vehicle, and I swerved to miss it. My car locked up, and I slid into a bank and hit a tree. And I totaled my car. A couple days later, I looked out my window, and I saw it again. I'll look out my kitchen window, and it's looking straight at me with those bright red eyes. I don't know what it is, so I did some research, and it's either a Wendigo or a skinwalker. I'm pretty sure it might be one or the other, and it's been stalking me when I go outside. I can sense something's watching me, but I can't see it. When I'm at my house, I can stand there and look through the window, and it taunts me. And lately I've been hearing and seeing things, but nobody else can hear or see, which is starting to freak me out. Yes, I do meditate. Yes, sometimes I have outer body experiences, and that's when it all started. I think it is a skinwalker stalking me. I seriously think I'm going crazy since I don't sleep. I'm up almost all week. The past week, I was up for 70+ hours, freaking out, because when I sleep, I see it in my dreams. It doesn't say anything, but stares at me with those red, beady eyes. And honestly, it looks like a werewolf, but the weird thing is, the top half of it is only the Dogman or wolf creature, and I do live in Washington County, Pennsylvania, the same county. I did send you a Bigfoot story, but a different location. I will have more coming to you, but this is all I have for now. I think it's gonna get a lot worse. I just have that feeling. Thanks for everything, Jeff. 4 terrifying encounters for your 4th of July. I hope you guys enjoyed these. I'd like to know what you guys think the cryptid in the first encounter is, Dogman or Sasquatch. I'm leaning towards Dogman just because of a couple little things that popped out at me. The last encounter, that is absolutely terrifying. I have no idea. I'd like to know what you guys think. I have a couple of uneducated guesses, I'd like to say, but I'm usually wrong. I'm kind of questioning maybe during the out-of-body experiences, if he brought something back. Not a skinwalker or a Wendigo, but something creepy and terrifying in the same sense. Anyway, guys, I hope that you enjoyed these, and I hope I'm not rambling because it's 4 in the morning and I'm exhausted. But with that, guys, have a great night and happy 4th of July.